Mobley Comics Audio presents 20,000 Leagues into Madness. Created by Brian Del Rio. Based on the works of Jules Verne and H.P. Lovecraft.
Chapter 8. The Hound and the Beggar. Police break up another underground brawl in Whitechapel. British, unchristian behavior, gentry involvement, local gangs. Bare-knuckle fighters would engage in boxing matches with a tournament-style setup which included brackets and gambling. Bare-knuckle? Well, that sounds interesting.
Arrived, Master Dakkar.
Hobson, my driver, shuts the door behind as my loafer meets the cobbles of Leadenhall Street. It's raining. I tuck the cane, an English symbol of wealth and status, under one arm as I place my black bowler cap on my head, adjusting it with both hands. I look up the box-shaped building of worn brick and dark white stone. The entryway, built in the neoclassical style, was like an ancient Greek temple. My throat feels tight. I pull on the edge of my collar. Something about this place, the austerity, the power. As I begin to climb the building steps, I look up at the bronze plaque mounted above the smaller doorway behind the soaring columns, which bears a relief of a three-masted sailing ship, and the four-sectioned heart that was the symbol of the East India Company. The doorman bows slightly.
Welcome, Master Dakkar, to East India House.
Yeah, Master Dakkar, the director is expecting you. The board is gathered. Go right in, sir.
Let's get this over with. Slanted bars of cold morning light cut across the high-ceilinged boardroom, and the long table around which the board members sat and stood. The group of men in their high white collars, black ties, black coats, and black waistcoats were all in good spirits, laughing as they puffed on cigars and sipped on dark liquor, despite it only being 10 in the morning.
Then here is Mr. Dakkar. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
An attending butler removes the crystal stopper from the bottle of dark liquor, pouring me a drink in a matching crystal tumbler. I accept the drink, hoping it would ease the hangover still pounding in my skull like a drum from my raucous night with Helene and a bottle of absinthe. The cigar, however, I politely decline. The butler takes my coat and cap, but I elect to keep my cane. Frederick Curry, the director of the EIC, slaps me on the back, nearly causing me to spit what I now knew was port back into the glass.
Dakkar, my dear boy, look how you've grown.
I squint at him through the eye-watering fumes which rise from the cigar in his mouth. He's a round fellow, mostly bald save for a crown of unkempt white hair that flew this way and that, before forming into a pair of bushy white mutton chops. These became almost a strap below his small round chin, a dimpled island floating in the jellied mass of his throat. I see the cigar shift from one side of his lips to the other with his pleased grin, as he introduces me to each member of the board, one at a time.
That is Mr. Peter Godfrey. That, Mr. Ross Mangles.
Make your acquaintance.
Mr. Luke Scracken.
Good to meet you, sir.
Mr. Joseph Fredwick.
My hand is throbbing by the time I'm done shaking with each of them.
Is Robert Coates.
Mr. Curry stands beside me with his arm around my back and a hand on my shoulder, as if presenting a prized goose after an afternoon of fowl shooting.
Just look at him, gentlemen. What a specimen. Why, when he first came to England, not 6 years ago, he looked like King Nebuchadnezzar, straight from the good book. Now look at him, a civilized man through and through.
I like to think of myself as a civilized man, but something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. Mr. Curry pulls the cigar from his mouth.
Yes, a fine specimen indeed. Quite impressive for any Mussulman or Gentoo. Quite impressive.
He nudges one of his associates with an elbow, pointing at me with 2 fingers, the cigar in between.
This is the nephew of Tipu Sultan, boss. Did I tell you that? Remember how savage Tipu was? Savage and inventive. The man put rockets at the end of spears. An inventor and a fighter. Yes, fighter to the end of that one. Now look at his nephew. Such an improvement. Yes, much improved.
I smile at being compared to my Muslim uncle, Fateh Ali Khan Tipu, the tiger of Mysore, a man who had given the English invaders a run for their money with his clever use of new technologies. Tipu had embraced that part of civilization which inspired me. Possibility. And for that, he would forever have my admiration, even if his war with the English cost him his life and kingdom in the end. My smile flattens as I recall how my father had wailed when he had learned of his brother's death and Mysore's fall. Soon after, he surrendered Bundelkhand to the EIC, and the soldiers in red coats marched into the city, never again to leave it. I gestured at the contract on the table. Thank you, Mr. Curry. Gentlemen, but if we could, I have appointments to keep. A few of the board members take seats around the table. Others stand and smoke or nurse their glasses of port. Mr. Curry takes the seat beside me. He dips the pen's metal point in the inkwell, offering me the quill with one hand as he slides the contract to me with the other. My eyes get lost in a sea of black ink letters.
As you requested. In lieu of ruling yourself, you cede dominion of Bundelkhand to your mother, Lakshmi Tawar Singh, as proxy ruler, satisfying the legal requirement of a male heir to Bundelkhand still being alive and capable of rule until her passing, when you would then select another ruler, thus doing away with the need for our company to take control of Bundelkhand via the doctrine of lapse. You could stay in England. Your father's kingdom stays in your family's control. Everyone is happy. Yes? Yes. Jolly good.
I look up at the board, whose previous high spirits and mirth seem to have died as they stare at me, waiting for me to sign my name to the contract. I hesitate. Mr. Curry licks his lips, eyes flitting nervously to his fellow board members. Then back to me. His smile is tense at the corners, his voice low and cautious, like a hunter trying not to startle a bird he's spotted as he raises his rifle.
Well, we could always ready you for your return to India.
I look down at my glass of port, watching the deep red liquid swirl as I rock the glass back and forth.
Splendid. Jolly good. Yes. You won't regret it, Mr. Dakkar. You won't regret it.
The postal clerk keeps a small mirror above his workspace. I avoid eye contact with the man trapped in the small round frame as I throw the letter on the clerk's desk. To my mother in Shanxi. I turn quickly, eager to leave East India House, but the clerk stops me with his call.
Master Dakkar, you forgot your seal.
The bespectacled clerk drips hot red wax onto the letter, preparing it for my ring. I sigh as I impatiently push my seal into it, the sweeping Gurmukhi character that looked to English eyes like the letter N.
Should be there in 9 to 10 months.
I turn quickly, giving the clerk a curt nod while snubbing the man in the mirror above his desk. I stride quickly toward the door, head down so that no one can catch my attention with a greeting or inquiry and keep me on these premises a moment longer. I make for the side door, where postage and shipments are accepted, and which exits at the corner of Leadenhall and Lime Street. It has to be this way, I keep telling myself. I just can't go back. Bundelkhand is the past, London is the future. Mother will understand, eventually. And father, he could already be... My life is here. My future is here. I'm sorry. How clumsy of me. A man about my age adjusts his newsboy's cap, knocked askew by my explosive exit. His push-broom mustache twitches back and forth, as if rage was something that needed to be swept from his lips. His eyes thin as he looks me up and down. As he takes in the finery of my outfit, I notice the patches and frayed seams of his. I attempt to straighten his coat. I'm terribly sorry. The man knocks my white, gloved hands away with his elbows, jerking his coat into place with clenched fists.
You'd think a rich toff like you could afford manners. Should be paying someone else to do your walking, if you insist on being such a blunderbuss about it.
That voice. The man pushes past, laying a hand on the door to East India House. Thad? Thaddeus Higginbottom? Is that you? The man freezes. Slowly, he turns to me, blinking in confusion.
Do I know?
His eyes widen, pushing his eyebrows far up his forehead.
Dakkar?
Overwhelmed with joy, I step forward to hug him, but he tenses and recoils. I drop my hands to my sides, swinging them awkwardly as Thad's eyes dart back and forth, as if in search of the proper response. At last, he sticks out a hand, his left. Seldom offered the left hand, there follows another awkward moment where I try to grab his left hand with my right, then realize my mistake and switch to my left hand, shaking his hand slowly, cautiously. Thad's expression softens a bit.
Prince Dakkar Talwar Singh. I didn't recognize you with the, you look... Well, you've become a regular English gentleman. I always remembered you as a good one. I knew you'd acclimate to civilization quickly.
My smile holds, but flattens a little. I'm not sure how to take that. I change the subject.
Yes, how many years has it been? Where did you end up going for seminary?
Thad's lips press together, hiding behind the broom of his mustache. He looks off to one side.
Seminary, never happened.
What? Why? For the briefest moment, Thad's face contorts into something ugly.
After those Gentoo savages...
Thad bites his tongue, seeing the expression on my face. Composing himself, he inhales.
After Dad, there was no money left for seminary schooling. Lived off what he'd left behind for a little while, but that ran out quick. Had to move in with me aunt and cousins when I was 11. Started at the factory, Dakkar Ironworks in Lambeth. Been there ever since.
Desperate to uplift the dreary conversation, I blurted,
Oh, I've been there.
Dakkar Ironworks. I toured it when it was first built. I wanted to see how an engine worked. It must be satisfying, knowing the engines you build can push a steamer across the Atlantic in 14 days. You must feel so accomplished when you leave every day. Thad stares at me a moment.
Accomplished? Sure, I feel accomplished.
He lifts his right hand. The sleeve drops down, and suddenly I understand why he'd offered me his left hand when we shook. A web of scarred flesh wraps around his forearm and wrist. The years-old burn looked like gnarled roots beneath the stumps of his pinky and ring finger.
Every day I leave with the 8 fingers I got left, I feel accomplished.
Thad, I'm so sorry. I didn't... Thad drops his arm, pulling at his sleeve to conceal the injury once more.
It doesn't matter.
He glances over his shoulder at East India House.
Tomorrow morning I start a new chapter.
I blink in surprise. Now it was my turn to be offended. You signed up? To join one of the company's armies? Thad nods.
I ship out tomorrow, aboard the Ariadne. Gonna make my fortune in India. Come home a gentleman. Never set foot in that damned ironworks or any other factory ever again. And maybe get to kill a few of those hideous mask-wearing Gentoo bastards what murdered my father.
Conflicted, I press my lips together and nod silently, defensive at how he mistreated my countrymen with his words, but empathizing with the unspeakable loss he had experienced at some of their hands. He pulls a letter from the breast of his coat.
Just dropping off the address for the new account I opened at the bank, so they know where to send my pay, and picking up my uniform.
He stuffs the letter back into his coat, then turns toward the door of East India House.
It was nice seeing you, Dakkar. Really, it was. Take care of yourself.
I chew the corner of my lip, pulling anxiously on my gloves.
Wait! We should do something. Before you leave? For old time's sake.
Thad pauses, holding his back to me. After a long moment, he turns.
Ever been to the Hound and the Beggar in Southwark? Me and some of me friends, fellow recruits, are going to bend an elbow there this evening. Drink our luck and fortune before we leave tomorrow. It's near Albion Dock facing the Thames. You can't miss it. That'll be perfect, actually. I'm meeting someone in Bermondsey this evening. I can pop by for a drink, and then it'll just be a short ride to my meeting after. Surely the son of a vicar would have thoughts on my participating in a ritual to speak to the dead in the company of a prostitute, so I kept that part to myself. Thad nods, turning back to the door. We'll be ordering the first round at 7. See you then. Culling Hill Bridge was so narrow that carriages moving in the opposite direction would often touch as they passed each other. For a moment, the luxurious red velvet interior of my carriage is darkened by the black-painted exterior of the passing carriage. I grab the package from the seat beside me, hugging it to my chest, eyes flashing to the side window. A hairline crack shoots across the glass pane as the sweeping gold letters of the other carriage fly by. Sentinel Hill Asylum. Hobson, my driver, snaps his whip in the direction of the long-past carriage.
Why'd you lie, you out-of-painted bulkhead?
I can hear the timbers of the bridge creaking and groaning, more vociferously than usual beneath the carriage.
Reel that mess to the car. Not sure how long this old bridge has got left. We should start taking the Lambeth or Westminster bridges were coming this way. Wouldn't be the first time a bridge fell into the Thames.
I ignore him, focusing on the package until the drab gray storefronts and shit-stained cobbles outside my window had transformed into manicured lawns and white-columned mansions surrounded by iron spikes. And then, until those had slowly disappeared into the rolling green hills and lush foliage of Hyde Park. I blink at the bright sunlight being reflected into my eyes. There, rising above poplar and ash and sycamore, rose the Crystal Palace. Slender rods of iron held together walls and an arching roof of sparkling glass, soaring over 100 feet into the sky. A prefabricated structure covering an astounding 18 acres of the park. My mouth is agape. I'm nearly trembling in awe as Hobson opens the door of my carriage. I step out, clutching the package between my hands as I timidly approach the entrance, a tide of Londoners flowing toward the Ticketmaster. A banner is draped across the Crystal Palace's entrance, announcing in bold black and gold letters the event of the century. Welcome, it reads, to the Great Exhibition of 1851. Like an enormous, two-story greenhouse, the Crystal Palace was built around some of the tallest trees in Hyde Park, its rounded roof arching over their highest branches. But unlike a greenhouse, the floor was paneled wood and red carpet. Between the exhibits which lined the walls were lapping fountains and white marble statues of Grecian and Latin design, striking mythic poses. Exhibits from all over the industrialized world lined both sides of this thoroughfare. I'm breathless with excitement as I view them. A local company, B.D. Taplin Co., demonstrates a traction engine that could move independent of rails. A tractor, which would eliminate the need for workhorses. I grinned with excitement as I watched it haul an enormous cart of lumber with ease. Another company demonstrated a voting machine, which, with the press of a button and the crank of a lever, could tally votes automatically and would prevent a user from voting twice with a locking mechanism. 2 cartoon portraits hung above the machine, Henry Thisman or Albert Thatman. I cast my vote for Albert, simply because the cartoon of Henry looked a little too much like Mr. Curry for my liking. The crown jewel of the exhibition was the so-called trophy telescope. With an optical tube as long and wide as an average horse and carriage, the gigantic instrument boasted a lens the size of a manhole cover. A long line had formed to peek into its eyepiece. I check my pocket watch, realizing I have precious few hours before I have to be in Southwark to meet Thad, and then Bermondsey for my spooky date with Helene. With a sigh, I abandon the line and continue through the exhibition. An exhibit all the way from America catches my eye.
A company called Winchester demonstrated a lever-action repeating rifle which could fire 7 to 14 rounds with frightening speed before ever needing to be reloaded. They had set up a small shooting range where one could shoot cutouts of men with red skin, painted faces, and headdresses of white feathers. I take aim. I finally hit one after 4 missed shots. I handed the gun back to the man in the enormous, wide-brimmed hat. Who are the little targets supposed to be? Beneath a bulbous pink nose, the man's mustaches were curled at the tips. These jumped upward with his grin.
Why, they're Indians, of course.
I blink in confusion, but before I can question the mustachioed man further, something behind him catches my attention. I pick up my package from the railing of the shooting range and cross the wood-paneled floor to a wall of resin-covered sheets of paper, each bearing a black and white image of my homeland. Incroyable, no? They are called the Dakkar types, says a Frenchman, suddenly beside me. He must be the one minding the exhibit. It will make the process of photography available to all within the next few years. All of these were taken in India, in a kingdom called Bundelkhand. Oui, that is correct. You have been? The Frenchman's words fade as I stare at the photo behind him. It's an image of my father, hunched in a wheelchair, my mother beside him with an arm draped across his shoulders, and my brother standing to their right in an unusual moment of calm. My throat feels tight as I stare into my mother's eyes.
Apologies. I was so taken aback
By these images in your exhibit that I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Dakkar. The Frenchman's pencil-thin mustache quirks at the corners of his mouth with his small smile. Simeon, though I can be proud on behalf of my countrymen, Monsieur de Guerre, you must know that I am merely watching Louis' exhibit while he is, how you say, spending a penny? He shakes my hand. Simeon. It is only then I notice his blue uniform and the tasseled gold epaulets on his shoulders. The Frenchman points to the cigar-shaped craft of plated metal behind him. That is my contribution to this world fair. Le Plongeur, a submarine. The first in the world to be propelled by mechanical power. An air compressor engine, instead of cranked by human hands. You're Admiral Simeon Bourgeois. The Admiral raises one eyebrow, impressed. Indeed I am. Do submarines interest you, Monsieur Dakkar? I try my best to slow my breath, to slow my words, but my heart is racing with excitement. Your submarine is the main reason I came to this exhibition. I have so many questions. The Admiral nods, stretching a hand toward the vessel. Well, let's not waste any time then. Ask away, Monsieur Dakkar. A kid in a candy shop. That is how I acted for a full hour. The Admiral, though not an especially old man, was breathless trying to keep up with me. As I moved, as I practically ran to see the vessel from every angle. Like the old military man he was, the Admiral withstood barrage after barrage of questions. It's smaller than I imagined. How large a crew can she hold? I climbed the ladder, looking down at the Admiral for his consent to open the portal. I looked down into the dark chamber, a cramped, windowless coffin. 13? And where are their quarters? No quarters. It is towed by a sailing ship until it is deployed in combat. How deep can she go? 10 meters. That's it? A common pearl diver in my home country can go 40 or more. Sorry, I don't mean to insult your work. How far can she go? Not well. As I said, it is towed to the places it must submerge by sailing ship. You must understand, Monsieur Dakkar, Le Plongeur's purpose is not exploration. He gestures at the bow of the cigar-shaped vessel. which tapered into a literal spear of metal, thicker than a man's arm. Its purpose is war, to not be seen as it plants explosives against the enemy ship's hull. He points at a pipe, bending outward from the hull and then upward 5 or so meters into the air. And in the depot, and the snorkel cannot be deployed, and the crew suffocates. I close the portal and descend the ladder. What would you say to the idea of a submarine that could be manned by a crew of 50, with quarters and space to comfortably move about and live for weeks, perhaps months on end? A vessel that could explore far deeper than 10 or even 40 meters. How much deeper? Much deeper. The Admiral shakes his head. No, it is not possible. You would need to store air in tanks, and the more crew you have, the larger the tanks would need to be. Which would mean you would need a very large engine to propel it all. And, as you can see from Le Plongeur, over half of the space of the interior hull is taken up by the air compressor engine. What if you use a smaller, more powerful engine? I know where you are going with this, Monsieur Dakkar, but burning coal cannot be used in confined spaces. The fumes it gives off cause the crew to fall asleep and perish. Yes, I've read, but what if there was a way to generate steam power without the use of burning coal? What if you could eliminate the need for fuel storage with an engine a quarter of the size that generates 10 times the power? The Admiral raises an eyebrow. I'd say you're reading too much science fiction, Monsieur Dakkar. Not science fiction, Monsieur Bourgeois. I crossed to the folding chair where I'd set down the package, carefully unwrapping it as I approached the Admiral. The technology has already been invented. In fact, your small submarine could be powered by an engine no wider than a briefcase. Imagine what we could accomplish with a vessel many times larger. Impossible. I would have heard of such an invention. Unlikely, because I haven't shared it with anyone yet. I hold the box-shaped mechanical contraption up to him. Permit me to introduce the Catabasis engine. I'm smiling from ear to ear as my carriage pulls away from the Crystal Palace and leaves behind the rolling green lawns and tall trees of Hyde Park. The Catabasis engine rests on my knees. I grab it from both sides, my hands shaking in excitement. I had done it. I had impressed Admiral Simeon Bourgeois, the world's foremost mind on the subject of subaquatic vehicles. So much so that he wanted to see the designs I had drawn for a much larger submarine, propelled by a much larger Catabasis engine, the Nautilus. And that, if he thought the engineering sound, he would take the design before the French government and see to its immediate construction. Monsieur Dakkar, if this invention of yours works, as I suspect it does, your invention would go down in history with the invention of the wheel, the sail, and the locomotive. What worlds will terrestrial man uncover when we are able to travel the full width and breadth of the sea? I think back to that night, 2 years earlier, when I'd been staying in that cottage in the English countryside. I had been shaken awake by a boom like a cannonball exploding above the roof of the cottage, followed by a flash of white light, which filled the black room so completely I had to shield my eyes. In a moment, the light was gone, and I ran to the window, watching a ribbon of white fire streak across the horizon. The impact rattled the windows, loosening shingles from the cottage roof. "Hobson!" I yelled. "My carriage! Now!" A sight like that hadn't been seen in England since 1783. I snatched up my lantern, determined to see where the meteorite had fallen. I can remember standing at the edge of the crater, waving smoke from my eyes as I raised my lantern. Something otherworldly gleamed. Chunks of gray-silver rock scattered across the blackened earth. A new element. The secret of my Catabasis engine. Culling Hill Bridge creaks as my carriage passes over it, headed towards Southwark. I turn my gaze eastward, my eyes following the flow of the Thames as I cross the river. The distant horizon glimmers like a line of pink and orange gemstones, where the dark and ancient river empties into the sea. As I stare at the watery horizon, my mind flips through the pages of the Encyclopédie de la Mer by the marine biologist Pierre Aronnax. the book gifted to me by my Uncle Abdul when I was but a boy, still living in the palace of Bundelkhand. In my mind's eye, I can see the illustrations, the lithographs of whale, dolphin, shark, sea turtle, and jellyfish. The pictures that had inspired my young mind, that had filled me with wonder, and the desire to explore the depths. Soon, I would meet these mysterious creatures, and uncover many more. For a moment, I remember the photographs of Bundelkhand, of my family, but after my meeting with Monsieur Bourgeois, I am certain the technology of this new age, of the civilized world, will allow men to live as gods, to fly like birds, and even perhaps walk on the moon and breathe its strange air. And it will let me lead the life of wonder and exploration I always knew was my destiny, in the depths of the sea.
Arrived, Master Dakkar. The Hound and the Beggar.
Oh, wow. The smell here is, unique.
Handkerchief, sir.
Thanks, Hobson. I should be no more than an hour.
Very good, sir. Have a ball with your lads.
Yeah! This should be interesting.
Inside, the patronage consists of mostly factory workers, their faces smudged with coal, and prostitutes, their faces smudged with dusts more colorful. I spot 3 or 4 groups of men in red uniform coats. East India Company Army recruits, furnished with the very same uniform worn by actual English soldiers. These newly minted company employees no doubt used the confusion to impress and bed those who couldn't tell the difference. A familiar face lights with recognition, waving me over to one of the groups.
Dakkar! Dakkar! Over here!
I make my way across the pub.
Don't be shy. Come right over.
Thad sets a hand on my shoulder, presenting me to his fellow recruits.
Lads, this is my good friend Dakkar.
One of Thad's friends takes a step toward me, vibrating the panels beneath my feet with his weight. The man was something intimidating to behold, enormous, like a grizzly bear that had lost its fur, save for a thick black mustache beneath his nose.
This is Oleg Bolotnikov.
I offer the man a hand. Oleg stares at it a moment, before looking me up and down.
His clothes are very fine.
Thanks. You don't have to touch the material.
Dark skin but fine clothes. You are bourgeoisie from Spain? You are Spaniard?
Oleg, no, he's not a factory owner. He's not from Europe. He's a prince of India.
I'm sorry, what did he call me? Bourgeois... what?
Bourgeoisie. Oleg subscribes to the belief of a German philosopher that lives here in London. You may have heard of him.
Comrade Marx, you should hear him speak. Here, take manifesto.
Thank you. I don't want to do this. Another of Thad's friends, one with a boyish face, short stature, and small shoulders, sighs in annoyance.
Would you stop giving those pamphlets out already, Oleg? That Marx guy's ideas are never going to catch on. And hasn't he been speaking against the East India Company to Parliament? Yet you, my Rusky friend, are joining it.
Not many work available for immigrant Russian. I do what I can to survive, until proletariat rises up and seizes the means of production.
That's never going to happen, Oleg.
Maybe not here, but in motherland.
Yeah, okay. A country where you can't throw a stick without hitting a priest or a nun, a country famous for its gigantic ornate churches, is going to kick out their god-ordained Tsar and embrace the ravings of a man who called religion the opiate of the masses. That'll be the day.
I am for to be having the opinion that is not that one.
Anyway, I'm just gonna shake your hand now, Oleg. And you are?
The name's Henry.
Oh, Henry. Your name is Henry. I just thought that was I thought you were...
Henry is one of the lads.
Henry is good lad.
Henry's one of the lads.
Okay, I'll just shake your... Ow, that's for grip. Henry gives me a lopsided grin and winks as I wave the pane from my hand. Thad gestures toward the two freckled young men with fiery red hair who had yet to be introduced.
And those are the Gallagher twins, Donnie and Brock.
Hello. How are you?
Don't let their height and quiet disposition fool you. Low energy, as we call them. The Sons of Thunder.
Good to meet everyone. Barkeep, a round of beers for me and the lads, and a bottle of your best gin for the group.
Well, thanks, Princey. And don't you worry about us poors. We pay our fair share. We'll each buy you a round before the night ends.
Oh, that's very courteous of you all, but I'm meeting with someone after this, and I don't think I have time for more than one round.
Drink! 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 Drink!
Prince wins!
Are you sure you're not from Russia, Comrade Dakkar?
Sure, you're not from Russia.
Oh, shite! He's gonna pop.
Incoming!
Nope, I'm fine.
Another round?
A pair of kings. Pay up, lads.
Idiots. Even now monarchs take my wealth. I tell you, there won't be any of those when the proletariat rises up and...
Subsidies the means of production.
When I bumped into you this morning, when you first bumped into me, I thought, who is this rich asshole? He can't afford manners? He can afford manners. Like, pay someone else to do your walking, you ass. But you said it. Said what? That. You didn't just think it. I did? Which part? All of it. Every part. Well, I don't think you called me an ass. I said that? oh, wow. I'm the ass. I'm the ass. You're not an ass. You're a good guy, Dakkar. You saved me. When we were lads, you killed a guy with a sword. Who does that? You're like King Arthur. You're like Hercules. You saved my life from a guy wearing a fish mask and drowning to death. And afterwards, you cried with me about Dad. I never had a friend cry with me, not before or since. You're a good guy, Dakkar. Good friend. You're my best friend. Come here. Oh, thank you. Barkeep, another round.
What? Coming right up.
Okay, one more, but I have to leave soon. Hey, where's everyone going? Into the warehouse. Why? For the tournament. Bare knuckle. It's a kind of tradition here in Southwark. Before a new batch of recruits ships out, new and former company soldiers fight for a chance at a flagon full of shillings. Locals are welcome to join as well. You want in? It's all good fun, very sportsmanlike, though you may lose a tooth or get yourself a nice shiner. All of us are gonna sign up. Come on, Hercules. What do you say? I say... yeah, all right. I'm in.
The stench of brine is thick in the warehouse, wafting in from the towns. Barrels and crates are pushed up against the walls to make room for the makeshift ring. Oil lanterns dangle from the ceiling, their light shining against the upper edges of the cheering crowd. Shirtless and sheened with sweat, Thad circles his opponent, holding his bare fists out in front of his face as a guard.
Get him, crosshook!
Yeah, close up.
Thad's opponent charges. Leaving himself wide open, Thad throws his fist up into the man's jaw, lifting him from his feet. A spray of spit flies from the man's pinched lips, blood gushing from his nose as he's lifted off his feet, back arching. He slams to the floor. Excitement shoots through me like a bolt of lightning, lifting a primal roar from deep within me.
Yeah, cross up.
Now this was a sport for men. The crowd bursts into an uproar of cheers and groans as money passes from losers to winners. Somewhere, a hammer hits a bell.
Lion Tamer is down! Lion Tamer is down! The match goes to Crosshook! Crosshook is the victor!
Someone maintaining brackets on a nearby slate crosses out Lion Tamer's name and writes Crosshook's a match closer to the championship. Meanwhile, another someone loops Lion Tamer's arm around their shoulder
I got you.
and helps him out of the ring. Thad smiles as he leaves the ring, moving toward where Oleg, Henry, the Gallagher twins, and I are standing in the crowd. Not bad, Crosshook, I say, handing Thad a towel.
Thanks, Dakkar. Thanks, Tommy. Brock.
Отлично работа, товарищ Higginbottom.
Спасибо,
Hell
Oleg.
of a fight, Thaddeus.
Thanks, Henry.
Thad wipes the sweat from his face and neck, catching his breath.
Thanks, lads. You're up, Spaniard.
I glance over Thad's shoulder to the mountain of muscle and scar tissue leaned against a barrel at the edge of the ring. He holds his back to us. He looks older, but tough. I gulp, beginning to wonder if signing up for this fight was a good idea.
Who do they have me against? Some older company veteran. Goes by the name of...
The Cyclops!
Go. You're up.
Thad and his friends practically push me into the ring.
Get him, Dakkar!
I take a few quick puffs of air to calm and center myself. My knuckles are wrapped in strips of white cloth. I raise them to my nose. The Cyclops doesn't turn. I punch quickly at the air to release some of the tension within me.
Face me, Cyclops. Are we gonna fight or...
A shiver runs up the bare skin of my back as the man slowly turns. My eyes widen when I see his face. But it's not the man's one empty eye socket, an unsightly red hole bristled with scar tissue that causes my jaw to drop. It's the face surrounding it. Decky, says the Cyclops, his one eye widening in recognition.
Jasper.
The Cyclops rolls his head, neck popping as he raises two enormous hands, even bigger than I'd remembered them, and pops his knuckles. His eye flashes with a murderous light. I'm gonna fucking kill you. Oh shit.
Mobley Comics Audio.